In the year 1914, Europe believed it was safe. Weeks later, millions were marching to war. How did peace collapse so quickly? Hi folks, my name is James. Welcome to Repost, where hidden stories of history and power are unfolded and explained. In the early 90s, Europe looked powerful and confident. Cities were growing fast, factories were busy, empires stretched across continents. To most people, the future seemed safe. But underneath that confidence, something fragile was actually forming. Countries did not truly trust each other. They prepared for danger, even while calling it peace. This is the story of Europe before the First World War. In 1914, we all agreed that Europe was controlled by several great empires, right? So the Britain ruled lands across the world, France held colonies and influence abroad, Germany had recently become strong, and they are very ambitious. To the east stood the Russian Empire, and in the center of Europe was Austria-Hungary, a large empire made up of different people. These nations traded with each other, they visited each other, but they also watched each other carefully. Each feared that one day another might become too powerful. So armies grew larger, navies expanded, weapons improved year after year. Every nation said it was only for defense, but no, every nation prepared for war instead. Everybody was like, how do I trust you and you are building your defense? Makes no sense. So everybody started building. For years, Europe avoided major war through alliances. Countries promised to defend one another. Germany stood beside Austria-Hungary. France stood with Russia. Britain stayed ready to protect the balance. Leaders believed this would keep peace. Instead, it created a dangerous situation. If one country fought, many would follow. One small conflict could become a continental war. Still, most people believed war would never really happen. Europe was modern, civilized, connected by trade. War felt like something from the past. To many Europeans, the world seemed stable. Technology was improving life. Trade connected nations more than ever before. Because of this, many believed a large war was no longer possible. But confidence can sometimes hide danger. Nations were not preparing for peace. They were preparing in case peace failed. Europe was divided into armed friendships. Each nation promised support to another. The agreements were meant to prevent war, but they also guaranteed that if conflict began, it would spread quickly. A regional crisis could become a continental one within days. At the same time, a powerful idea was spreading: nationalism. Many groups no longer wanted to live inside large empires. They wanted their own countries. In the Balkans, this feeling was strongest. Serbs, Croats, and Bosnians all wanted independence. Austria-Hungary feared losing control of the region. Russia quietly supported Slavic unity. Small conflict broke out again and again, but none of them started a world war. But each one increased tension though. People began calling the Balkans the powder keg of Europe. Even in peace, government planned for war. Military leaders wrote detailed battle plans. Railways were organized to move soldiers quickly. Mobilization schedules were prepared in advance. These plans were strict. Once started, they could not easily stop. Leaders believed speed would win wars, but speed also meant that diplomacy would have little time. If a crisis came, decisions would be rushed, and rushed decisions can change history. Mobilization plans depended on speed. Armies had exact timetables for movement. Once activated, trains would carry thousands of soldiers toward borders. Stopping such a system would be harder than starting it. Every nation claimed its army existed only for defense, yet every nation measured the strength of its neighbors. Military plans were created years in advance. Once started, they would be difficult to stop. The system meant that a small crisis could move faster than diplomacy. By the summer of 1914, Europe was balanced on expectations. Peace existed, but only as long as no one forced a decision. In the summer of 1914, a visit was announced. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, would travel to Sarajevo. For many Europeans, it was a normal political event, but in the Balkans, some saw it differently. To them, the Archduke represented foreign rule. Most civilians did not expect disaster. They watched events as routine ceremony. History rarely announces its turning points. It often arrives disguised as an ordinary day, and a few believe history could only change through actions. Most of Europe barely noticed the visit. Nothing seemed unusual. Peace still existed. Europe had avoided a major war for decades. Trade connected nations. Royal families were related. People believed modern civilization would prevent catastrophe. Yet armies kept growing. Suspicions deepened. Newspapers spoke of rivalry. Peace remained, but it rested on uncertain ground. History often changes not because people want disaster, but because they misjudge the moment. Leaders did not actually want a large war, but they feared appearing weak more than they feared conflict. Alliances created obligations, and obligations reduced choices. Back in those years, the stability of Europe depends on restraints. But restraint required every nation to pause at the same moment. But that moment will not come. By the summer of 1914, Europe believed it understood war. Leaders spoke of quick victories and limited consequences. Many expected that if fighting began, it would end within months. They did not imagine a conflict that would consume an entire generation. The systems built to protect peace were now too rigid to slow events down. Alliances demanded action. Military timetables demanded speed. National pride demanded response. What follows was not planned by a single nation, but created by many decisions made under pressure. In Sarajevo, crowds gathered for a routine visit. Few realized they were standing at the edge of a turning point in history. Within hours, the world would begin a path toward a war unlike any before it. In the next episode, we examine the moment that ignited the First World War. A very young man waited in a crowd in Sarajevo. He believed his action could shape the future. Within weeks, one event would activate alliances, mobilize armies, and put the world into war. This has been episode 1. In the next episode, we uncover the spark that set the world on fire. This is Jim Repost. Stay tuned.